Thank you for joining us here on The Burning Question. It's Saturday evening. I'm Niranjan. In a short while from now, we have India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar addressing the UNGA at a very interesting time when across the world there are interesting headlines and a very, very tense situation building up, given Israel's bombardment of Lebanon, given that Hezbollah commanders, Hezbollah chief, have been eliminated in the last 24 hours, and given that Pakistan has tried to needle India. Our focus on the global developments this evening on The Burning Question. Is there a lesson to learn from Israel's response to Hamas and Hezbollah? Here are the headlines on The Burning Question.
And Israeli civilians will be found and eliminated, whether it's near or far. Just as we were prepared for this precise attack, we were prepared for many other scenarios.
Israel on the offensive. Hezbollah confirms death of its chief Hassan Nasrallah in Israeli airstrike. Several top leaders of Hezbollah eliminated. Israel says we will not stop. Iran and Iraq coming to the defense of Hezbollah. Iran's Supreme Leader Khomeini backs Hezbollah, Iraq also in support. Reports say that after Hezbollah chief Nasrallah now eliminated, his deputy Naim Qassem has been temporarily appointed Hezbollah chief. Iran Revolutionary Guard's Deputy Commander Abbas killed in Israeli attacks in Beirut. Proof of Iran's open meddling, support given in this war. Short while from now, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar all set to address UNGA. Eyes on his address and message, especially to Pakistan, any minute now. Staying with the top headline this evening, in a few minutes from now, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will address a high-level session of the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York. It's expected in a few minutes, and the theme for the general debate is leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations. But the reason why we are watching out for this address is because Pakistan tried to needle India once again. Pakistan tried to make a few outlandish comments at the UNGA. India has already responded at the diplomatic level, and we are expecting S. Jaishankar to give a befitting response to Pakistan shortly. I'm going across to Major General G.D. Bakshi, joining us on the broadcast this evening, and Dr. Swasti Rao, who's an Assistant Fellow Eurasia, joining us in this short segment as we build up to what Jaishankar could say at the UNGA. Starting with you, General Bakshi, very interesting time for India to be speaking at the UNGA, and when Jaishankar comes in, of course, there will be the focus on India's immediate neighborhood and also response to terror, especially given the backdrop of Israel's bombardment and the manner in which they're giving it back.
Absolutely. At the UNGA address, Pakistan, once again indulged in its very, very standard Kashmir rant. This time, Shahbaz Sharif also spoke of the Indian threat to what is POK, and he felt that India was making preparations to take POK by force, and he added the customary warning of 1.5 pow, 2 pow bombs that they would unleash in case this happened. This is very familiar saber rattling. It just shows Pakistan's desperation that the Kashmir issue has more or less been forgotten by the world as such. The simple fact is that with the removal of Article 370 and 35A, India has ended all ambiguity on the status of Jammu and Kashmir. India has asserted that it belongs to us, that legally the Maharaja Kashmir had acceded to India, and that included the whole of Kashmir, including what is now POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. That legally belongs to us, and we will take it back whenever we feel the time is right. So Pakistan has been duly rattled. Also, they have been served notice on the Indus Water Treaty. They have been clearly told that blood and water do not flow together. And this was a very generous treaty given to them when there was born better relations between the two countries, and it was given in the hope that it would change Pakistan's needlessly truculent behavior towards India. Nothing of the sort has happened. Things have only worsened. And therefore, as Foreign Minister Jai Shankar very rightly said, there will be consequences.
Yes. Dr. Swasti Rao, what are you expecting when S. Jai Shankar takes the stage at the UNGA today?
Well, I mean, part of what I expect from Dr. Jaishankar is a continuation of India's, stand when it comes to the United Nations. We are obviously going to be speaking about the need for reform, because in today's times, you see that the United Nations is going through an existentialist crisis. It has not been able to rise up to the occasion. It is absolutely irrelevant now to give any kind of a solution to any world conflict. You see that United Nations has basically just been reduced to an embarrassed, I would say, actor, which is pushed to the corner. And I think unless there is a fair amount of political will and geopolitical will, which we obviously see in the favor of India, for reform, and it's very, very clear. Only, I think, in the last few days alone, you've seen major powers of the Security Council actually support India's bid for the permanent membership. I mean, except for China, we have everybody supporting our seat at the United Nations Security Council, because, the fact is that the world looks at India, the world knows that the India, today has the credibility, the intention, and also the capabilities, to actually give a more lasting, innovative solution to how to look at world conflict. You cannot really expect that from any other country right now, especially in the group of four. So I think we have Dr. Jaishankar is going to talk about that. And I think that Dr. Jaishankar is also going to be talking about India being the voice of the global south. I think the certain remarks which were made by him, especially on, for example, the BIMSTEC and India's focus on BIMSTEC and all of that, how India is serious about its neighborhood first policy, its vision of Sagar, its Act East policy. I think we will see sort of sprinkling of all of that in his address, because I think India has made it very, very clear that India and neighborhood, for India is a strategic priority. And that in our neighborhood, we have so many countries that are developing economies. And today, when you see so many of those countries making a U-turn, especially in the case of Maldives, you also understand that I think the regional players in the region also need to understand that they cannot really go very far without the support of India, because India is the credible voice when it comes to taking leadership of the global south. So in my opinion, I think we would have a sprinkling. We would see a sprinkling of all these factors: India's long-standing commitment to the UN reform, India's credibility as being this one actor that the whole world looks at, the innovative solutions that India has been talking about, whether it's the war in Ukraine or whether it's elsewhere, and then India's strategic priorities when it comes to actually doing something for the neighborhood in a way that actually connects the dots of the different connectivity programs that are going on in the region. So I would be perhaps expecting that from Dr. Jaishankar.
All right. So at this point, Major General J.D. Bakshi and Dr. Swasti Rao, I'm quickly going to switch the debate. I'm going to go across and tell our viewers what happened between Israel and Lebanon, the bombardment and the latest news updates that I have. I'm going to move to that debate. I want you to stay with us because we're having a larger debate today. And when S. Jaishankar speaks, we will come back to this debate. But I'm going to broaden this and open up the debate to our global panelists as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah has been killed in the strikes in Beirut. It's been a day of hectic developments, comments coming in from different countries. We have videos of how Israel did it. Here's the latest.
It was endgame for Hezbollah after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sent out a chilling message to Iran and its proxies at the UN, vowing to continue its pursuit of enemies and take its war on terror to a logical end.
For the first time ever, Iran directly attacked Israel from its own territory, firing 300 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles at us. I have a message for the tyrants of Tehran. If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East.
Israeli forces stepped up its onslaught on Hezbollah, bombing the congested southern suburbs in Beirut and sending locals scrambling for shelter. One of the airstrikes killed Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, who the IDF claimed was behind the slaughtering of many innocents. Confirming the hit on Nasrallah, Hezbollah extended its condolences to brothers of Muslim resistance in Lebanon. Fearing a bid on Iran's supreme leader next, the country's Revolutionary Guard moved Al-Khamenei to a secure location. In his first response to the killings of the Hezbollah chief, Khamenei called on the Muslim brethren across the world to join the resistance against Israel. Significantly, the Israeli airstrikes in Beirut also took out the deputy commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, Abbas Nilfaroshan. Meanwhile, Iraq Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani declared 3 days of national mourning in the country after the killing of the Hezbollah chief. The Lebanese militia responded to their leader's killing with a fresh wave of rocket fire on Israel. The fresh rocket barrage from Hezbollah drew more airstrikes from Israeli forces, according to local reports. With Bibi's tough message at the UN translating into fierce action on the ground, the wider West Asian conflict has clearly entered a decisive phase.
Okay, opening up to our global panelists this evening, Major General J.D. Bakshi continues to stay with us from Delhi. Dr. Swasti Rao continues to stay with us. She's also live from Delhi. She's the Assistant Fellow, Europe and Eurasia Center, and also from the Manohar Parrikar Defense Studies and Analysis. Brahma Chalani, Geostrategic Affairs expert, will be joining us live, not live yet. Adel Nazarian, who's a Senior Fellow, Gold Institute for International Strategy, joining us live from Washington, D.C. for a U.S. perspective. Dr. Meir Jabir Anfar, who's a professor at Reichman University, live from Israel, will be joining us in a few seconds. Einar Tangen, who's a political affairs commentator, live from Beijing for a Chinese perspective. I have Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary, founder, Middle East Insights Platform expert, live from Delhi, and Dr. Sergei Roginko, expert of BCMF, BRICS Culture Media Forum, professor at the Russian Academy of Sciences, live from Russia for a Russian perspective, also joining us on the debate right now. Let me start with Einar. Will be interesting to get a Chinese perspective on what's going on. What do you make of the escalating tensions? Where does China stand in all of this?
Beijing has issued an official statement where they've condemned the actions and called for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, and an implementation of the two-state solution. This is nothing new. Obviously, the concern in Beijing is that you're going to have escalating conflict. Already Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, Syria, all of these countries have indicated that they will back Hezbollah. So what you have here is more war at a time when we need less.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to Dr. Maher straight away, joining us live from Israel this evening. Dr. Maher, when you have countries in the Middle East, I think I just saw a statement coming in from Turkey calling it genocide. How does Israel respond to such statements when some Middle Eastern countries, not all, call it genocide while ignoring what happened and what started this war in the first place?
Well, Mr. Erdogan has got his own agenda. Unfortunately, Mr. Erdogan has started aligning himself with groups such as Hamas. I mean, soon after the October 7 massacre, Mr. Erdogan came out and said that Hamas is not a terrorist organization. So what he's saying right now is not exactly a surprise. Mr. Erdogan has taken Turkey on the international stage to a place whereby he's supporting basically a terrorist organization that has killed many Israelis. In terms of the operation last night, Mr. Nasrallah chose to be in a bunker very deep beneath the neighborhood of Dahia, if I'm not mistaken, if that's the name. And to destroy it, you have to use bunker busters. There's no other way of reaching him. And he's somebody who's committed to the killing of Israelis. And not just Israelis. I would like to remind your viewers that his organization killed 85 Argentinian Jews in 1994 at a bombing at the Jewish Center in Buenos Aires. So he decided to attack Israel on the October 8th, the day after the October 7th massacre. He started this war, and this is where it ended for him.
Yeah. And how far is Israel going to go? Because we just had a bit of breaking news come in a short while back that Iran's supreme leader has gone into the bunkers. He's gone in hiding.
It's very unfortunate because I'm Iranian Israeli. I was born in Tehran. Majority of Iranians do not wish to see Israel destroyed. They want their country developed. Iran is a beautiful country, very rich country, but unfortunately it's ravaged by poverty and corruption because of the ruling regime's foreign policy. And right now, Israel is willing to challenge Iran's proxies. We're not at the point of direct war between the two countries yet, but Ayatollah Khamenei is actually the one responsible for Iran's foreign policy, especially towards the state of Israel. And it seems that he will continue with these policies. But right now, I think the Iranian security apparatus is very concerned about a possible penetration, deep penetration by Israel, by the Mossad amongst its ranks, and it's taking precautions to secure the life of the supreme leader. But to be honest with you, I don't know why, because Israel does not target heads of countries. We target heads of groups, but we don't target heads of countries. We don't do that.
Interesting. Okay. I think I just lost the line with Adele there. I also have Dr. Shubda Chaudhary. Let me bring her in. Hi, Adele. I just lost your video there. So while I bring you back on, I also have Brahma Chalani who's joining us. Okay, let me start with Brahma Chalani. Okay, Adele is also back. So we're switching between guests. Adele, I can see you now. Okay, let me get the US perspective first up since I don't have one yet. I see that you're busy with your child. I'm sorry.
Beautiful.
I am. I'm a new mom, so we had kind of this last minute.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead. Hi, hello from India. Hi.
She's a future journalist like mommy.
I hope she can't listen in. Thankfully, there's no shouting or screaming on the debate today, so I think that's okay. All right. So, how is US looking at this, and what kind of role do you see US play in a situation like this, Adele?
Thank you for that question. I think that the U.S. has shown strengthened support for Israel. Of course, Israel is America's eternal act. It has been repeated by many administrations, Republican or Democratic alike. I just think that, sorry, I'm going to have to do this, but I just think that what's happening here is clearly going to only strengthen America's resolve to support Israel. And I feel that you heard Benjamin Netanyahu's statement in the UN that there is no place in Iran where Israel's long arm will not reach, and the rest goes for the rest of the Middle East. Same goes for the rest of the Middle East. And I do think that regardless of whether it's a Democratic administration with Kamala Harris, or if it's a continuation of what was started in 2016 with Donald Trump, that Israel can definitely have America as a resounding ally. And I do think that regarding the escalation of events in the Middle East, and honestly, the whole of the region, including an escalation of global terrorist alerts, I think we're going to unfortunately be seeing a lot of that. And the way Iran responds, the way that nations that are allied and supportive of Hamas, unfortunately, are going to respond, will definitely be the determining factor as to how badly the situation will escalate and what the next steps are in terms of precautionary measures. I don't personally see any Westerners traveling to the Middle East in the near future. I would strongly advise against it, especially not Israelis who are traveling to other Muslim nations. But I just want to point something out also. The first victims always of radical Islamic terror are Muslims themselves. And they may target different groups, but it's truly unfortunate that they target their own people. And that's something that I hope the elimination of Nasrallah will really cause to be lessened. And I think a lot of my friends in the Middle East will agree.
Yeah, thank you for that. Let me go across to Brahma Chelani. Every Indian watching this is wondering what's going to be the impact of this war in Asia, for example. Brahma Chelani, what are the immediate ramifications? How far do you think Israel is going to go in this war?
Right now, the Israelis are launching massive airstrikes. The idea is to soften up the target before they launch the ground offensive, the same thing they did in the Gaza Strip. But we should not forget that Hezbollah is a far more formidable foe for Israel than Hamas. Now, the war in Gaza is nearing 1 year's anniversary now. In a few days, it'll be 1 year since that war began. And the Israeli military acknowledges that that Israeli forces are still meeting organized Hamas resistance, and that eliminating, that is wiping out Hamas, is not a feasible military objective. So obviously there isn't a credible military solution that Israel has against Hezbollah. The thing about Hezbollah is this, that, first about the assassination, it's dramatic, and therefore many people are asking whether this could be a mortal blow to Hezbollah. But we should not forget the history of militant movements of the last 25 years. This history shows that assassinated leaders are easily replaced with new leaders who often tend to be more radicalized leaders than the ones that, they tend to be more radicalized than the ones who have been eliminated. For example, when Israel assassinated Hamas's political chief, Haniyeh, on July 31st in Tehran, Hamas took only a few days to name a replacement, Yahya Sinwar, as its new political chief. So what the history tells us, that assassinating leaders of militant movements, by and large, brings only near-term success. But they can foster longer-term threats by stoking grassroots anger and unifying rival factions in a militant/terrorist movement. So instead of weakening a movement, an assassination can strengthen it. So we have to keep that at the back of our mind and not reach a hasty conclusion that Nasrallah's elimination it will be a mortal blow to Hezbollah. I think Hezbollah has shown over the last more than 3 decades its capacity to bounce back from major setbacks. The fact is that Hezbollah has created a state within a state. This is a state within the state of Lebanon, and Hezbollah is also not just a militia organization. It also provides social services. It runs hospitals, it runs schools. So this is how Nasrallah was able to cement the Hezbollah's grip on the Shias in Lebanon. And I think Hezbollah, given the fact that its ties with Iran have enabled Hezbollah to be armed with pretty lethal weapons. For example, Hezbollah has anti-tank missiles. So when the ground offensive begins, when Israel enters Lebanon by land route, it will face a foe which is well equipped, and despite all the blows that Israel is inflicting on Hezbollah through airstrikes, its ground offensive is going to be bloody and long.
Yeah. I have 4 or 5 bits of breaking news updates before I go across to Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary. I have a new video that's just come in. If the video is ready, I will play that out of an airstrike which has been reported in the southern Lailaki area of the Lebanese capital of Beirut near the city's international airport. So bombardment continues. I have that latest video coming in. The video also shows a column of smoke rising into the sky with an airplane in the background approaching the airport for landing almost simultaneously with the attack. So that's how dangerous the situation is. Bombardment near the airport, and you can see planes in the background. I'll just play that video out. It's just coming in right now. And as I get you that information, Russia has issued a statement strongly condemning Israel's killing of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. The foreign ministry in Russia calling on Israel to stop hostilities in Lebanon. Russia saying that this forceful action is fraught with even greater dramatic consequences for Lebanon and the entire Middle East. IDF has issued a statement just now that the Chief of Staff held a situation assessment in the Northern Command with members of the General Staff Forum. And Kuwait has urged citizens to leave Lebanon immediately. It's another breaking news update that's just come in. Back-to-back updates, global headlines. Iran has declared a 5-day mourning over the demise of, or the elimination of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. And China has also just issued a statement calling for ceasefire without delay. And that's the video, ladies and gentlemen, of the bombardment that just happened. We'll play that video out. And I'll play the video out full frame from the beginning. Let's cue it from the beginning. This is a video of an airstrike that has been reported in the southern Lailaki area of the Lebanese capital of Beirut, near Beirut's international airport. This video shows a column of smoke that you see on the right of your screen there rising into the sky, and you can see in the background somewhere in this video an aeroplane approaching the airport for landing almost simultaneously as the attack took place. So as I bring these visuals, let's also tell our viewers the situation is very fragile. There are several breaking news updates coming in. I want to go across to Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary now. While I also go across to Dr. Shubhda, I'm welcoming Dr. Sergei Roginko for a Russian view. But Dr. Shubhda, how do you see, I mean, I just looking at the statements coming in from both Russia and China, this is going to, following on the back of the Ukraine war, once again, global powers taking sides. And how do you see this play out diplomatically?
So thank you for that question. I would like to first state with a simple truth of life that when 2 elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. Let us understand what caused the evolution of Hezbollah, 1978-1982 invasion of Israel to Lebanon. Hezbollah was established in 1985. Also understand that Hassan Nasrallah's death, as we use terms like elimination, the terms that are being used by Hezbollah and the other radicalized groups is martyrdom. For example, when Imam Sadr was eliminated in 1978, the Shiites are very ambiguous about assassinations, and they believe in the concept of reappearance religiously. Yes. That will be used for radicalization, first. Second, Hamas, for example, in 2005-2006, the evolution of it. We cannot conflate that all Palestinians in Gaza are Hamas supporters. No, they are not. A lot of Palestinians in Gaza or West Bank do not support Hamas. Now, the point is, the entire history of this process has not started only from October 7th as the time frame. It has, from 1948, the entire history of both Israeli and Palestinians being, specifically because of the state apparatus, being eliminated by each other, targeted, when they are all innocent lives. The Israeli civilians who lost their lives, the hostages who are still not back, all of them were innocent. The Palestinians, those in Lebanon who are being killed by carpet bombing, those 30,000 Lebanese who are now going to Syria, all of them are innocent. They had nothing to do with Hezbollah. The point is, where does this kind of military incursion lead us? In international law, there's the phrase of jus ad bellum, which means in what context can one state impose another state? What is the sovereignty of Lebanon here? That is the first question. The second question is Russia, China, whichever point of fact that they have to support, they can, it is their right. But I just want to remind everyone that India has an 800-year-old hospice in West Bank, which is giving shelters. It was established in 1200 AD. It is giving shelter to UNRWA refugees in West Bank. So what I would say is that India is at a very historic place and moment to create, as it always says, a two-state solution. What is happening right now will not be solved through military solution. It needs a political, sociological solution. Until that symptom is resolved peacefully, till that symptom is resolved, any kind of military onslaught is going to boomerang back on Israel and a lot of Israeli civilians. There are so many Israeli activists, peacemakers like Mao's Inon. There is Emmys Oz and his daughter, the famous Israeli historian Fania Oz-Salzberger, who have been talking and critiquing about the entire problems that are there within the Israeli society. The protests against Netanyahu were happening way before October 7. So the domestic politics within Israel is also not in black and white. What I am trying to say is from a completely humanitarian perspective, and I repeat again, when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. India needs to take the leadership here because it has indigenous ties. It has 85,000 Indian Jews in Israel. 85,000.
Yes.
India has very strong relations with Palestine in terms of humanitarian, educational, medical support, all of it. Indian army men are deployed in the Golan Heights in UN peacekeeping forces. India needs to take this leadership stand, not wait for what China and Russia are saying, but create or take this moment and act as a peaceful mediator. Because it's only India that can bring Israel and Palestine together.
Yeah. Okay, I'm bringing in Dr. Sergei Roginko into the debate. That's a Russian perspective. So we have a diverse view on our discussion. I wouldn't call it a debate, a discussion this evening with Indian views, American views, Israeli views, Chinese view, and the Russian view as well. So, Dr. Roginko, we just saw a statement coming from Moscow saying that they condemn Israel's killing of Hezbollah leader Nasrallah, saying that this forceful action, they're calling it forceful action, fraught with even greater dramatic consequences for Lebanon and the entire Middle East.
Hear me?
Yes, it's a little faint, but yes, go ahead.
First, there is a necessity, a need to put an end to the bloodshed. A necessity to put an end to the terror. But, there are a lot of things underpinning this terror and this bloodshed. Look at the wars that were happening in the last 25 years. All these wars are about the oil, about the natural gas, and the transfer routes. It's Libya, it's Iraq, it's Afghanistan. And finally, everyone is trying to touch Iran, where a lot of deposits do lie. And there is a lot of things like that underpinning the conflicts in Gaza. because there are huge deposits of natural gas on the shelf of Mediterranean that doesn't belong to Palestine. But Israel wants to force the Palestinians out of Gaza region and take these deposits. They want to use the situation when Europe stopped importing the Russian gas, and Israel wants to be one of those countries that will be getting their money from exporting gas to the Western Europe. To be honest, let me remind one thing. 23 years ago, I was discussing with Mr. Brzezinski, the famous Western analyst and advisor to many presidents of the United States. I asked him, does the United States have any answers to modern realities of the 21st century, or you have nothing to offer except the old wars for resources? And Brzezinski did not answer this question. That means the wars for resources will go on, and now these wars are in the form of West against the West. And the West is very much united. And all the rest are more or less scattered or even conflicting with each other. If this happens,
yeah,
and it will stay that way, the West will simply eat up the life one by one, because Anglo-Saxons will never forget India. Will never forgive India for gaining its independence after the Second World War.
Yes.
And the West will never forgive Russia for supporting Indian independence and for supporting Indian economy in the 60s and in the 70s. And for supporting the independence movements all over the world, including Africa and Latin America. Therefore, there is a need to fortify the BRICS framework and to have BRICS as a working mechanism, not just a forum or a platform to discuss.
Yes, I've just got another breaking news right now that Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, has just issued a statement as we speak. The breaking news coming in that he's asked for the violence in Lebanon. UN saying it's violence in Lebanon must stop now. I want to go back to General G.D. Bakshi. General G.D. Bakshi, while I respect the views of all our panelists here, the views of China, the views of Russia, we had the American view, the Israeli view. You look at the Russian conflict, right? I mean, the Russia-Ukraine war, right? People will argue on what the provocation was and who attacked first, right? And you look at the Israel war and the trigger for the Israel war, and there was a genocide-like situation where over 1,000 people were killed in a matter of hours, and Israel has said it is going all out to eliminate those responsible. Now, my question to you is, what are the, as someone who's closely involved in defense planning studies, etc., I am more worried about the kind of radicalization it brings. And I'll tell you an Indian example, even though it's a domestic example, I shouldn't be bringing into this debate, but I have a comment from a political leader in India called Mehbooba Mufti, who says she's cancelling her campaign tomorrow in solidarity with the martyrs. An Indian politician saying, solidarity with the martyrs of Lebanon and Gaza, especially Hassan Nasrallah. We stand with the people of Palestine and Lebanon in this hour of immense grief and exemplary resistance. Now, I'm leaving that comment aside, and the reason why I brought up that comment is because the further danger of radicalization post this escalation. General Bakshi.
Before I get into that, let me give a purely military perspective on what is happening. The center of gravity of Israeli operations has shifted from Hamas and Gaza to the Lebanon border and Hezbollah. Let me, point out that even prior to 7th October, the primary target of Israel had been Hezbollah, which they felt was the far more dangerous and truculent kind of an opponent. 7th of October, Hamas struck. 8th of October, the Hezbollah opened massive fire on rocket fire and anti-tank guided missile fire onto Israeli settlements, Israeli installations. About 60 to 70,000 Israeli citizens have had to be evacuated from northern Israel because they were in the line of fire. Now, quite obviously, that cannot be accepted forever and ever. And, Israel has stated very unequivocally that it will create conditions for the return of the Israeli evacuees from northern Gaza. To that extent, it has commenced its intelligence and air assault operations, more or less, to decimate the Hezbollah, having imposed a fairly heavy degree of attrition, of degradation on Hamas. It has now switched targets and gone on to degrade the Hezbollah and its capabilities to keep shelling, to keep rocketing the cities and other targets in northern Israel. And purely in terms of the right of self-defense, I go with what the Israelis are saying. No nation can accept its territory being rocketed indiscriminately and endlessly. So they had to create conditions for them to go back. They have tried to do it with intelligence-driven operations. Leave aside the morality plays. They have used the pagers. They have used the walkie-talkies on 17th and 18th of September. 19th onwards, they have started a series of airstrikes. They have hit the rocket launching positions in a preemptive manner. That means they have taken them out before they could discharge their rockets and missiles, right? We were anticipating in military circles that the Hezbollah response would be very robust, that they would fire 1,500 to 2,000 rockets a day. They have been reduced to 2,000 to 3,000. I'm only purely talking from a military general's perspective, right? Morality plays, I will leave to my other co-panelists. But the fact of the matter is that they were restricted to just 200 to 300 rockets. That shows the effectiveness of the preemptive action taken by the Israeli Air Force. They have gone in for command and control attrition. They killed the head of the rocket forces of the Hezbollah. They've killed 2 or 3 other commanders. And then just about yesterday, day before yesterday, they hit with their F-35 aircraft with a bunker-busting bomb, the GBU-74. They penetrated deep into the headquarters of Hezbollah and they eliminated Nasrallah Hassan, the head of the Hezbollah. Now, this shows a very high degree of very accurate intelligence, human intelligence coupled with technical intelligence. And the fact is that the dominance that Israel had in the region, military technical dominance, has again been more or less restored. But where do we go from here? The loss of Nasrallah Hassan, I don't think will make the Hezbollah kaput. There still remains action. The Israeli effort so far has been to try and use air power and intelligence-driven operations to try and force Hezbollah to accept a ceasefire, to pull back its forces from the Lebanon border back across the line of the Litani River, right? Do we see it happening without a ground invasion? I'm not very sure. As it is, Israel has no option but to prepare for a ground invasion if the set conditions are not created for the return of 70,000 of its people who have been forced to evacuate. So there is a scope for escalation. And in the coming days, we see that the Hezbollah are trying to avenge the death. That means Hezbollah has 150,000 rockets. So a barrage of rockets coming up onto Israel can be expected. Israel will not take it lying down. They will retaliate. So I see an escalatory ladder already in place.
Yeah. Okay.
The United States has been asking Israel to hurry up because they have had their aircraft carriers on station for the past few months. They also have to, go back to their ports to refuel, rearm, re-equip, rest their forces. They've been asking them to hurry up.
Yeah.
It would be in the interest of all if this conflict was concluded swiftly. But if that does not happen, I see an escalatory spiral, and there is no predicting which way that could take. Will it involve Iran getting involved? As of now, one cannot say for sure. The Iranian president said that they would not be incited into such precipitate actions.
Yeah.
And if that happens, if the United States is involved, and
I'm just getting in a breaking news update right now. One comment that's just come in. General Bakshi, sorry to interrupt you there.
We hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm just getting in a breaking news update right now. There's been a statement that's been made by the Iranian vice president who says that Nasrallah's killing will lead to Israel's end. I'll repeat that. He says the killing of the Hezbollah chief will lead to Israel's end. Dr. Mayor Javed Anfar, how do you see such statements being received by Israel? And how is Israel preparing? I mean,
it's nothing new. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been calling for the elimination of the State of Israel since 1979. We don't have a border with Iran. We don't have any, we're talking about Israel occupying land and that being the cause of war. I can understand that argument, but Israel is not occupying Iranian land. Let's not forget, Israel was occupying Lebanese territory until 2000. For 24 years, Lebanese territory has been in the hands of Hezbollah. Did that end war? Did that end Hezbollah's wishes to kill Israelis? No, it did not. So when some of my respected friends say that the solution in the future is for Israel to leave occupied territories for peace, I also want peace. I also don't want to occupy anybody's land. But the land that internationally was recognized to be Lebanese, we evacuated it according to United Nations Resolution 495. And Kofi Annan, the General Secretary of the UN, confirmed that Israel had left every inch of occupied territory of Lebanon. And look at what happened. It didn't end the hostility of Hezbollah. And the killing of its leadership, how can it make people even more radicalized when they already are radical? They want to kill us despite the fact that we're not occupying their land. And of course it makes sense to kill the leader. It's better to kill the leader than to go after 10,000 of the people during the lower ranks, because it's the leader, killing the leader, that will cause the biggest damage.
Yeah.
Of course, Israel also Mossad carried out a very sophisticated operation against the Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon through the beepers. And we've already done that also, but if you really want to go after the nerve center of the enemy, you go after the leaders. One last point: Hamas we also evacuated Gaza in 2005. We gave back that territory, hoping that they would lead to the start of a new peace process. Instead of Hamas developing that piece of land, they turned it into one of the biggest hotbeds for terrorism. Instead of all the aid going into Gaza being built to develop the lives of Palestinians, the situation in Gaza, and I'm saying this as an Israeli who wants to live in peace with Palestinians. I also believe Palestinians, their rights have also been undermined. I'm not in denial over this. But when we do try to make peace with Palestinians, all we've seen is jihadi, especially jihadi. Instead of making Gaza, they developed the most sophisticated tunnel operation to use it to kill Israelis, and for Hamas families and for Hamas members to use it as protection, not for people of Gaza. So the situation, I can understand my brothers and sisters in India who want to look at this from a humanitarian point of view, and I totally respect that. But this conflict is not just about that. This conflict is about confronting people who want to see Israelis dead no matter what, whether we give land back or whether we don't.
Yeah. I want to bring in Dr. Swastirao here. Dr. Swastirao, I mean, taking away from what Dr. Meher said towards the end of his intervention, he said, of course, some of my Indian friends will be thinking of it from a humanitarian angle, but I feel there is a lot to take away from Israel's offensive against terror, their response to terror. And of course, India will also take a humanitarian view of the casualties, but there is a lesson also to take from Israel's fight back of terror.
Well, very quickly, I've been listening to this wonderful discussion, and I completely understand why, we have these friends and these representatives and how they are forwarding their views. But thank you for that question. I have 3-4 points to make, I think, that we've not been discussing so far. First is that from India's perspective, we have always forwarded a two-state solution, and I think it's very, very clear. But at the same time, I think also as an Indian scholar, I do see that Israel has never really vowed to destroy the state of Lebanon or the state of Iran or the state of Palestine. On the contrary, you always hear that ever since the history, throughout the history of the Arab-Israel conflict, you see that the Arab countries and Iran, they have always vowed what they just vowed again, which is that destruction of Israel as a state. So I do understand that Israel is forever into this existential threat. That's one thing, and I kind of understand that. The second point that I want to make is that from an Indian perspective, I do see that I think one of the things that can probably make a difference, I'm sure Israel is aware of that, but I think also when I talk about as a country who has been at the receiving end of a lot of terror and a lot of terrorist operations, I do feel that I think there needs to be, the countries in the region, especially Israel and also a lot of Western countries, they need to relook at how money is flowing into Hezbollah outfits. Where is there are countries like Argentina, Australia, Egypt, Japan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, maybe, United States, of course, that have actually banned transfers of funds to Hezbollah. But then you also have countries like Germany, you also have the European Union, that have only outlawed certain military wings within the Hezbollah, and money keeps coming in. And what we did see is that all that money is then, funneled into ways which become very uncontrollable, and all in the name of peace, all in the name of reconstruction. So I think when we are speaking about reconstruction, when we are talking about, all of that and the humanitarian intervention and aid, you really have to have the oversight to see where it is going. If you don't have these mechanisms that actually see where the money is going, I think it is going to probably only perpetuate the kind of complex situations that we've been seeing since October 7. And my last point, Niranjan, is that from India's perspective, when the Abraham Accords happened, and then there was this process of normalization happening in the West Asian region, and India was at the forefront of actually starting this wonderful connectivity project by the name of IMEC. So India was very much invested. India has always tried to build constructive ties, whether it's Iran, or, whether it's Israel, whether it's UAE. So India has tried to build very positive ties with everybody. So India, of course, our interests are getting affected because of the way IMEC has now been put on the back burner, because how peace in West Asia remains so fragile. But like I said, that ultimately these dots are going to connect to all the money that is basically flowing into these outfits. And unless you sort of tighten the control there, unless you sort of choke those kind of financial flows, it'll be very difficult, because end of the day, anybody can get around and say that, okay, this is going to lead to more radicalization. I mean, do we have a radicalization meter, by the way? I completely agree. I mean, we also see that in Kashmir, for example, that there are youth that are radicalized. The government has tried so much to mainstream them. But end of the day, you have to make sure that they are not really getting the money to actually lead to the nefarious activities. And only then that you bring the states in, you bring development in, you start connecting the diverse geographies and all of that. And all of that comes later. Back to you.
I've completely run out of time, though I wanted to stretch this a little bit. It's a very, I mean, it's a breakaway from what we usually do at 9 p.m. We have a debate. This is a discussion. And a special thank you to Adele for being so patient with your little one joining us on this discussion as well.
Thank you.
And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank Jal Bakshi, Dr. Swasti Rao, Pramod Chalani, Adele, Dr. Mer, Ainar, Dr. Shubda, and Dr. Sergey Roginko. We will speak again. This is going to continue for the next few days and weeks. We hope it doesn't go too long, but we will speak again. Thank you very much. I have some breaking news coming in. I'm going across straight to that. From the state of Tamil Nadu, breaking news now that the Tamil Nadu cabinet has been reshuffled and we have the Chief Minister's son who has just become the Deputy Chief Minister. So, a dynasty politics in Tamil Nadu as Stalin's son Udayanidhi Stalin has been elevated. He's now been ranked Deputy Chief Minister. And the very controversial Sendil Balaji, who was raided, arrested, he's been reinducted into the cabinet. This has been confirmed by the Raj Bhavan. We have just confirmed that there are several names that were given, and among them, Udayanidhi Stalin. Udayanidhi Stalin, now the Deputy Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. Taking a break. Thanks for watching.